Well, it has been a week since the PS Portal has launched, and it's been a little longer than that because I then caught COVID, which is why my voice sounds a little off, but I have a lot of feelings about it, and I want to get right into them. I'm going to start with a question. What's the point of the PS Portal? Like, really? Well, what we know is that it's a dedicated remote play device for PS5 games, and as of writing, that is the only thing it does. It is fundamentally, at its core, a Wi-Fi controller and a screen. It's a slightly more laggy, long-distance Wii U gamepad. So what's good about it? Well, the UI is snappy, simple, quick, and intuitive. It just gets you straight into gaming. There's no nonsense about it. There's quick settings. There is the option to connect to different consoles and swap between them. Check your network. Do your, brightness. Other than that, it is nothing else going on there. It is nice and simple. Another huge plus of it is it's super comfortable. In my opinion, the DualSense is the best controller. It is the best one I've ever used. I know some people love GameCube. I know some people love Xbox 360. But to me, DualSense is the peak. And this controller is just everything that makes the DualSense good with a screen slapped in the middle. And it doesn't really wreck the ergonomics of it for me. I still think it is super comfortable to use, and I still adore using it. It makes it just so seamless in your hands. It really disappears and just allows you to focus on the game. The ergonomics of it overall, just they rival everything else on the market, if not surpass them. It's miles better than the Switch. It is better, in my opinion, than the ROG Ally and the Steam Deck. Both, despite those both being quite comfortable to use, it still leaves them in the dust. I know some people don't like symmetrical sticks, and that will be a turnoff to them, but personally, I'm a fan of symmetrical sticks, so that is not a downside for me when it comes to ergonomics. And of course, the best thing about it is playing your PS5 games wherever you want. But let's talk bad. That Play Anywhere, well, there's an asterisk. You need Wi-Fi. There's no playing offline. It is completely useless without Wi-Fi. PS5 turned off instead of in rest mode, you're shit out of luck. Another issue is there's no specific control of streaming resolution to the device. Want to lower it to 720p and get less latency because your internet's not all that great? No dice. As far as I could tell, checking all the settings, there's no way to do this. It only adjusts dynamically and on the fly, meaning you might go from 1080p to 240p in a matter of seconds, which I'm just not that big a fan of. This could totally be changed with a simple software update, but I don't know that it's coming, and I have to operate on what I have in front of me, and as of right now, not having that option really sucks. Last issue that I'm sure you've heard in every single review of this device is that you cannot stream directly from PS Plus to the Portal. Now, for me personally, that is absolutely not an issue. I have no desire to stream games through PS Plus. I only want to play stuff on my console or remotely on the console, but I can totally understand why that is a big issue for a lot of people and why it is a distinctly lacking feature, especially when PS5 game streaming, PS3 game streaming, PS4 game streaming is an option on your console, but you can't do it from the Portal. And we gotta round things out with the ugly. For all the ergonomic advantages it has, it's got a face only a mother could love. It looks like the engineers took a hacksaw to a DualSense, grabbed a BlackBerry playbook out of the e-waste bin, slapped it all together, and called it the newest product. Now, my earlier drafts tried to avoid it, but I've come to realize I can't avoid talking about the price. When you look at all the products that surround it, all the other handheld options we have, PlayStation accessories we have, it seems fair. However, when you look at it in a vacuum, it's really not that great for what you get. $199 US for what is a DualSense with a screen in the middle, it's just not very compelling. And when you take it back out of that vacuum and compare it to the PS Vita, it launched for $249.99 USD, which is $327 adjusted for inflation. And 1 year later, they dropped it down to $199, which is the same price that this product is launching at. And the Vita could do the same thing this does, and could play its own games. It's a hard sell. Who knows, maybe a year from now we'll see that same $50 price drop applied to the Portal, but until then, this remains a touch overpriced. Now that we've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly, let's take a quick look how to get it connected to your PS5. First off is to sign into your PSN, which is made nice and convenient by the QR code that you can scan using the PS app on your mobile phone to get signed into pretty much instantly. Next, you need to turn on remote play in the PS5 settings. It is recommended, and in my opinion, essential to turn on network wake in the rest mode settings as well, so that your portal can turn on the PS5 if it's sitting in rest mode. And of course, in order to have gotten even close to this far, you had to have connected it to your Wi-Fi, which, if somehow you've made it this far into the video without realizing you need Wi-Fi for this device, it's not for you. Now that you're connected to your PS5, let's talk about the various connections and the quality of it. One thing to take into account going into this section is that all of this testing is being done on my mediocre small-town Canadian internet. Your mileage may vary. I tested a few variations of getting connected with my PS Portal. I tried the PS5 on Wi-Fi and on Ethernet, and then I tried the Portal on my home network, my work network, and my cellular network. Changing between Ethernet and Wi-Fi on my PS5 made little to no difference for me. My PS5 is already incredibly close to the router. I got no difference when it came to the actual visible performance. According to the PS5, it was a little faster on the Ethernet, but again, even that was really negligible. But what did make a huge difference was what I was connected to on the Portal, which should be surprising to no one. When connected to my home network, there was very minimal input lag. It was super usable and playable on pretty much everything. With my work Wi-Fi, the latency was slightly noticeable and there were occasional resolution drops, but for single-player games, it was more than playable, and for some multiplayer ones, it was passable for sure. And the last thing I tested was running off my data on my phone. And boy, let me tell you, that was super inconsistent. Now, the mobile data is going to vary massively for person to person, but for me, my setup is I have 5G through Bell here in Canada, and I'm running on an iPhone 15 Pro Max. At the best of times, it was super playable, but definitely more latency than work Wi-Fi, and more resolution drops than that as well, and at its worst, it just wouldn't connect at all. Now that I've shown the different connections, let's talk game specifics. I tested a fair few games, a couple that I was playing and a couple that were requested, some multiplayer and some single player. Most of the miscellaneous single-player games I tried were more than playable from work, and from home of course, and data, like I said before, off and on. The games I tested included Borderlands the pre-sequel, Untitled Goose Game, and Skyrim. The latency was occasionally noticeable, but I was perfectly able to get sucked in and forget I was playing remotely. One game that consistently came up as something people wanted to see tested was Elden Ring, or any sort of Souls game. Now, I'm not very good at Elden Ring, but it is a good example of a single-player game that requires better timing and may be more impacted by latency. But now, having tested it, Elden Ring, another totally playable game. It has been a while since I've played it, so it could partially be me being a little rusty at it, but I was definitely missing more of the dodge rolls than I did when I played it, and I could feel a bit of the latency, but once you sort of get a feel for it and adjust to it ever so slightly, I found myself getting right back into the swing of things and having really no issue dodge rolling and whatnot. One thing I noticed while testing Elden Ring, specifically on mobile data, was that the inputs I was doing would show up on the PS5 itself before I would see them on my screen. Just to explain a little more, my setup was I was connected to my mobile data in front of my PS5, capturing the footage on my computer. Now, through the capture software, I was able to view the PS5 in real time. When I was pressing stuff on the portal, it was registering in the capture software and in real time on the PS5 sooner than I was seeing it because of the data lag. So the controls are definitely getting priority, and you're getting that through first. And even when the view on the screen would get really fuzzy or even stop going through entirely, I was still actually able to control the character in the game and move it around while looking at the PS5 itself. What can you do with this information? Pretty much nothing, but it is an interesting thing to note. Another game I was recommended multiple times was Call of Duty MW3, or more broadly, Call of Duty. Surprise, surprise, I'm dog shit at COD. Now, even with that said, I was even more dog shit playing on the PS Portal. This is really starting to push it. When you're playing a game like COD, You are not only relying on the connection between the Portal and the PS5 to be good, but then the PS5 and the actual game servers to be good. Definitely had the most noticeable latency so far. So if you're any sort of competitive, you will hate the Portal for Call of Duty. However, if you're a filthy, pathetic little casual like me, you'll still have quite a bit of fun with this, especially compared to the previous offerings from Call of Duty on a mobile PlayStation platform. The last game I tested was Rainbow Six Siege. Siege is a game I could almost call myself good at. With that thought, I went, hey, what's it like on the PS Portal? Yeah, no, Siege is absolutely unplayable on the Portal. In this game, I highly value my quick responses and my quick ability to see things. Hell, I can barely even play it on 60 FPS anymore, let alone being passed through the Portal with this kind of latency. If you're looking to play a game like Siege, or if you're as competitive at another game as I am with Siege, this just ain't it, Chief. Having gone over all of that, there is something that I need to address that a lot of people have brought up, and that's the alternatives to the PS Portal. There are quite a few ways to do remote play on the PS5. Option 1 is a laptop and a DualSense. This method certainly works, though the Windows and Mac app both sort of suck. It's a solution for some, for sure, and if it works for you, that's awesome. But it really is no replacement for an all-in-one handheld. Option 2 is what most people go for. Any combination of a backbone or a Razer Kishi and a phone of any type. Definitely the cheapest option, and to most, it's gonna be the best one. For me personally, I like to keep gaming entirely off my phone. While it is an easy solution, it can sap your phone's battery quite quickly, leaving you with nothing to do, well, everything else your phone does. So that leaves us with dedicated handheld gaming devices. The main comparison I'll be doing is the Portal versus the ROG Ally. So how does the Ally compare? Well, for starters, out of the box, it just doesn't work for remote play. Now that's not to say it can't connect. It does have the exact same Windows app as you would be able to use on a laptop. However, upon connecting, you're unable to use the built-in controller. To get around this, you have to trick the remote play app into thinking that built-in controller is a DualSense. I used a program called REWASD. It is a paid program, but to test it, I just used the 7-day free trial. Now, once we've worked out the small issue of the controls being completely unusable, you can finally compare the ROG Ally to the PS Portal. Connection-wise, the Ally is definitely less reliable. It takes far longer to connect, and from what I could tell, there was a tad bit more input lag. But once connected, the Portal and the Ally have a fairly similar experience. While using it, the Ally is definitely noticeably less comfortable to use. It does weigh quite a bit more, making it a little more uncomfortable to prop up, and the ergonomics are slightly inferior to the PS Portal. The Ally does also have a slightly smaller screen. Don't let anybody ever tell you size doesn't matter. It does. Now, the biggest difference in the experience between the Ally and the Portal is the battery life. The Ally generally gets a sub 3-hour battery life experience, even when running in silent mode, and the standby, well, you're dealing with Windows Modern Standby, so it's terrible. The PS Portal, on the other hand, gets a solid 6 to 10 hours of battery life, and in my usage, has an excellent standby time. To give an example with the Portal, I charged it up Saturday night the week I got it, used it for an hour or two on Sunday, left it in standby, used it on Monday for a few hours, about 3 or so, and by the end of the day, it had around 20% on Monday. However, I must call out how annoying it was to get that 20% metric, considering it only shows you the 3 bars, and in order to get a percentage indicator, you have to shut the device down completely, plug it into power, and tap the power button once, at which it finally shows you a percentage number. And to give an example of its excellent standby time, I then charged it up that Monday night, got sick with COVID on Tuesday, left it in my backpack until today. It is now Saturday at the time I am recording this, and it is currently still showing 3 bars. All of this is a long-winded way of saying, I fucking love my PS Portal.